No, no, don't do it.
Alright everybody, welcome back! So if y'all saw my video about the 11.0 matchmaker last patch, you'll know exactly why I'm playing this thing now, but 12.3 was introduced in Update Sons of Attila, right? And so what that means is that 11.0 no longer gets sucked into the top tier matchmaker every single game. Now, it's not as amazing as I'd hoped it would. I've been getting a lot of down tiers to 10.0 or 10.3, but I have still been getting some 12.0 games. It's not as good as it was with 10.7 last patch. But in any case, this still does give a lot of 11.0 planes a lot of breathing room. You know, stuff like the F4E, for example, which was absolutely terrible before this. And of course, the Kfir C.2, which is what I'm playing here today. Now, I believe it was an update, I think it was La Royale. Guys went ahead and added the Python 3, right? And so a couple of the planes they added it on was the Kfir C.2, which you see here today, and the Kfir C.7. Now, the C.7 stayed at 11.3, but the C.2 was 10.7 before the update. It went up to 11.0 with the addition of Python 3s. And now that it can get down tiers, you're able to fight 11.0 to 10.0 planes, which a lot of them, or at least a good portion of them, don't have flares, with Python 3s, 40G all-aspect missiles. This is absolutely nuts. Like, the Python 3 is one of the best missiles in the game. It may not be as good as something like the R-73, or the AIM-9M, but it's definitely, I would say, the third best short-range IR missile. It has excellent range, excellent speed and pull, and it has pretty okay flare resistance. I mean, it's nothing amazing. It has the same flare resistance as the AIM-9L, right? Now, a lot of missiles are more flare resistant in this patch than they were last patch because it's something called rise time, and the Python really benefits from that. Now, what rise time does is it makes it so that it takes a little bit of time for the flares to heat up after they leave the plane, right? The Python has incredibly quick acceleration, so this lets it get in close before the flares have time to heat up, especially at close range. And so in these close range dogfight shots, unlike last patch, you're not going to be having them flared off nearly as much as you used to. Now, if you've been paying attention to the background, you've probably been noticing that I've been trying to deal with an F5E. And the F5E is kind of like this thing's kryptonite. He can't really kill me, but I also can't really kill him. Now, I am much faster than an F5. You can see I put my nose down, I got some speed up, and this thing's acceleration above Mach is exceptional. It actually out-accelerates the MiG-29 and the F-16 and other planes like that once it gets above Mach. The only problem is that you rip your wings in a straight line, which is why I'm pitching up right here, so I can still gain more speed over the ground, and you see I'm leaving him in the dust, but this way I don't have to worry about redlining and then ripping my wings off, which this thing does relatively frequently. The problem is that, sure, the plane is fast, but it's also a delta wing. Little crash course in delta wings. They pull a lot of AOA, but they bleed a ton of speed. Now, for a bit more detail into that, you can see every time I pull my nose around, I'm losing energy, even though my nose is pointed down. You have a ton of drag whenever this thing pulls its nose around, so you're going to have to really compensate for that. This is not one of the planes where you can just sit there and press S all game, or whatever else you have to move your nose up and down and win. If you do that, you will lose every single time. This thing has to be played in a very specific play style where you are maintaining energy when you need to, and you're giving it up only when you know that it is safe to do so. Because sure, you can go ahead and really throw on the brakes. Like, I hardly ever use air brake in this thing because if I just pull my nose, I lose tons of speed. It's just, there's a lot of cases where that's really not an advantage for you. Although in cases like with that F5 earlier, which if you notice I was able to make him very easily overshoot, if you are able to get your guns on and get a shot off, you're great. The problem is when you miss, because then you have no speed left. This thing does at least have much better acceleration than the other Mirages. I always like to joke that, the Kfir is a modified Mirage, right? And I joke that it took an Israeli modified plane with American engine to make the Mirage good. Crucify me if you will, but that's just the way I see it. I do get trolled right here. That F5 should have been dead right there, and I am going to lose out on a kill this game because of that, unfortunately. The Defas are usually really good. I'm a huge fan of Defas personally. They have, for me at least, very easy ballistics, and they also do tons of damage normally when they hit. It's just that, for whatever reason, I decided not to that time and only got a hit. And here is a perfect example of that low speed performance how you just lose all of your speed. The Kfir at least does have those canards, which gives it a pretty decent amount of stability at low speed. Your rudder does not like it at all, though. So you just got to keep that in mind. If you're slow, you're going to have a very hard time getting your nose on target. And I wouldn't really recommend doing sustained, low-speed dogfights anyways, but you can kind of get away with it in the Kfir purely because of how strong this thing's engine is. If you can get an F5C slow, you can stick with it all day, no problem, because the F5C doesn't really have the thrust to weight to back it up. The F5E, on the other hand, you're going to be in hot water. Same thing for this F8E right here. I'm kind of able to stick behind him. If I had more ammo, I would have had him right there, but I decided, you know what? I've got 6 rounds, and I went ahead and decided to go ahead and just run back to base at this point, right? One more thing. Please, for the love of God, do not run the Vulcans on this thing, the Vulcan gun pods. Just avoid running bombs if you possibly can. If you really want to take head-on, just throw a Python 3 at them and the head-on at the last second like I did right there. The Vulcans weigh it down so much. This is such a light, agile, and fast fighter. Why are you strapping an extra, 1,200 kilograms on there that you can't take off the plane? Defas one-shot anyways when they hit most of the time. In any case, though, that isn't a downturn. You will be getting some 12.0 games, and this thing is still relatively viable performance-wise in a 12.0 match, because it's able to catch pretty much everything. And it does have Python 3s, which are still very competent. It's just you only have 2 of them. And the bigger issue, for me at least, is that you only have 36 countermeasures. So if you want to run chaff like I do, you only get 9 drops, which is really, really not good.